Good afternoon. My name's Alison De Luise and I work with the European Covenant of Mayors. My role there is coordinating a lot of the activities that we're doing around energy poverty with many of our critical energy poverty partners. The Covenant of Mayors began in 2008 and it was very much focusing on energy related issues and trying to decarbonise our cities in order to address the climate challenges. But it became fairly clear not that long after that despite all of the efforts that we were doing, the climate was still changing. We were experiencing more severe weather events, and so we needed to start thinking about adaptation and how we were going to make our cities more resilient. A little bit later on though, we realised, well, one of the most important aspects was still missing, and that was really the issue of vulnerability and which members of our society were being most severely impacted by both climate change and this transition away from our current energy system. And that was really the genesis of where energy poverty came about. It was being recognised obviously at the Commission level, became a major priority, and so we brought that into the framework of the Covenant of Mayors as our third pillar in a way to really ensure that vulnerability, equity, justice, just transition were really centerpieces of our efforts with Europe's municipalities. From 2025, we're going to really be centering a lot of our efforts around energy poverty. I should say that many of our signatories are already well engaged in this topic, and particularly with the support of our critical partner, EPAH, the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub, there's already a lot of efforts going on in this space. But from next year, what we really want you to do is further mobilise our signatories on this topic of energy poverty. And we're going to do that through encouraging all of our cities to select at least one energy poverty related action that they commit to undertaking. And then we're going to provide them with over 50 different energy poverty indicators, which have been selected with our key partners, including EPAH, to really help them monitor and guide their efforts on this topic. This is not meant to be a prescriptive process. We are really interested in supporting our signatories on this journey and ensuring that all of our signatories are moving forward together, which is why we're really putting efforts into this topic. What we're hoping is that for those signatories that are only beginning their journey, this framework, which includes both the reporting framework and the indicators, really acts as more of a service and a tool to help them on this journey and to guide them. And they can use that to the extent that they find that useful. We're also hoping that by starting to have more signatories reporting and telling their stories about both their actions and the progress they're making on it through the indicators, that we can start to tell a bigger story about what's happening with energy poverty in Europe. We can also, obviously, through that start to identify better what are the gaps, what are the areas of knowledge that are still missing, and how can we better support our signatories along their journeys and develop programs with critical partners like EPAH to really fill those gaps. On the question of the degree to which our members are interested in this topic, I can confirm that there is a lot of interest, and as I mentioned earlier, many of our signatories are already doing great things in this topic. Although I mentioned earlier that we're going to be mobilising them more from 2025 in this topic, they can start doing work right now, and they already have been. I think we brought this topic in as a pillar back in 2015, and I'm not quite sure that we necessarily foresaw what was going to happen in 2022 and beyond with the energy crisis. But I think that was a time when suddenly the topic of energy poverty raised to the attention of high-level policymakers at EU, at national, regional and local level. And many of our signatories, our municipalities, started to recognise that many of their citizens were really struggling to pay their energy bills. So there's definitely appetite, there's definitely interest, and so really our role now is to support them best in this journey. We are very fortunate to work very closely with the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub in what I'd consider to be a really complementary relationship. EPAH provides the guidance, the knowledge, the expertise that really then supports us to take this and share them with our signatories to really help them on their energy poverty efforts. So this new sort of mobilisation from next year, where we're really bringing everyone into the fold, all of our nearly 11,000 signatories, it does mean that we're going to recognise there are still gaps that exist in terms of knowledge and capacity, and we want to be there to support them. So working with EPAH, also working with some of the Horizon and Life projects that are also bringing information and tools and services in, we're going to be continuing our efforts to provide a lot of support. And we do that in a range of ways. This video, which is part of a training course, is obviously a really nice way to meet municipalities where they're at in terms of them accessing these materials when it suits them. We also have EPAH's excellent technical assistance program, which many of our signatories have already benefited from. And the beauty of the technical assistance is that a signatory can identify a particular issue that they want to work on, and they have experts walk hand in hand with them to address those issues. Of course, then we look at then how we can take that learning and scale that out further. We also have a range of different capacity building opportunities from the annual conferences, lunchtime webinars, which EPAH again tend to be the lead in. We have the guidance notes that help our signatories on energy poverty diagnosis, on planning and implementation, which already exist and you can find on the Energy Poverty website. And we have what I would consider to be really receptive help desks, both at EPAH and at the Covenant of Mayors, that can respond to inquiries from our members, whether they be on more technical topics around energy poverty or more at what I'd consider administrative topics on how to use my covenant and report. So I guess the strong message here is that we, with our partners, particularly the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub, are really here to support the energy poverty pillar and our signatories on their energy poverty journeys. So at the Covenant of Mayors, we have what we consider the three distinct pillars, which are mitigation, adaptation, and energy poverty. But while there are some actions and activities that very clearly fit within one pillar or the other, we also recognise that citizens of European cities don't operate in pillars and they operate their lives in very comprehensive ways. We also recognise that there are limited funds in municipalities, and so what we need to be doing is working out how can we tackle multiple challenges through individual interventions. So we're really fans of trying to find synergies between these three different topics and encourage our signatories to do that. We also recognise that energy poverty is a multi-dimensional phenomena. So it comes about through generally low income, high energy costs, and low energy efficiency of buildings. So obviously that's an area where our efforts around mitigation are often quite focused, given we know that buildings emit and contribute to high emissions in our cities. And so mitigation type actions there might be things like increasing insulation of buildings, of windows, to make them more energy efficient. It could also be related to energy efficient devices. And all of these things both reduce energy use and therefore emissions, but also ideally reduce energy bills and therefore reduce the vulnerability of our energy poor citizens. Looking now more sort of the adaptation side of things, we've noticed over the past couple of summers in Europe, some of the hottest summers we've experienced, this phenomena that's becoming more well known around summer energy poverty. And really that's the issue of people not being able to keep their homes adequately cool in the summer months. So again, here we could think about what are some of the measures that would address some of the adaptation challenges we have, but also address energy poverty. Here we might think about the use of green or white roofs or facades on buildings, obviously as ways to keep buildings cooler. We might also sometimes even think about things that seem probably quite obvious in some parts of Europe, such as the Mediterranean, that they understand that by closing their blinds in the mornings to stop sun coming in, that keeps their buildings cooler. And these are more sort of behavioural type changes. All of these things keep buildings cooler and obviously also reduce their energy costs. I think that's more at the building level, but if we sort of hone out a little bit more to the landscape neighbourhood level from an adaptation perspective, we also know that green infrastructure, nature-based solutions are an excellent way to reduce urban heat island effect, which obviously impacts also the temperatures of buildings and homes. So introducing nature-based solutions, greenery, green spaces in between buildings, in between homes, in courtyards, obviously can reduce temperatures, but there's also many other benefits they provide. They can be spaces for people to gather for social cohesion. Social cohesion is important in building individual and community resilience. We also find that they can provide benefits such as managing water when there's extreme rain events. So the multiple benefits of nature-based solutions can be put to work, both for adaptation outcomes as well as for energy poverty and reducing some of the energy bills and the summer energy poverty issues being faced by many Europeans. The final thing I want to say about all of this, and we started off this conversation talking about why we introduced energy poverty as a pillar, and really that was a question of thinking about vulnerability. And I want to end here by saying that if we really want to address justice and equity and ensure that the impacts of climate change do not exacerbate existing inequities and do not make situations worse for some of our population groups, we need to be thinking about justice aspects up front in designing our different measures. It can't be an afterthought. By bringing this in front in our decision making when we're designing things, we can move towards achieving our ambition of leaving nobody behind. In terms of one thing that cities need to do to ensure that energy poverty is better embedded into their work, I think they need to understand the situation in their cities. They need to have a really good process of recognizing, diagnosing, understanding the degree to which energy poverty is an issue and how that issue is manifesting within their environment. The Covenant of Mayors is a really interesting initiative because it is bringing the voices of local authorities to the different levels, the regional, the national, the European level, to really say, we are some of the best positioned people to address the climate crisis in Europe across all three pillars. And so we're here to say, listen to our challenges, listen to our needs, listen to our solutions. The Covenant of Mayors provides that platform. It also provides a really interesting framework, tools, services, guidance that can really help cities on their journeys. It's not meant to be prescriptive. We understand how diverse situations are in Europe across all of these topics, but really it can help provide a framework, a system, and all of the capacity support that goes behind that to help them on these journeys.